Hello there, this is Dana Arcuri from danaarcuri.com, author, speaker, and wellness coach. And today I have an entirely different topic, something I've never talked on that I wanted to share with you. And so here it is. Can a meat lover go vegan? And so the journey for me wasn't something overnight. It wasn't like one day I woke up and said, hey, I think I'm going to stop eating meat. Or hey, I think I'm just going to go vegan. Instead, for me, I have to take a good step back and look how my journey to healing and to health and to really dramatically changing my health for the better, how it began. And so for me, it began 5 years ago when I was at rock bottom. It began 5 years ago when a cocktail of chemicals, which is pharmaceutical drugs that were prescribed to me, caused severe interactions in which I nearly lost my life. And I had to take a good, close look at myself and say, what needs to change? How can I reverse this chronic pain, depression, all of these unhealthy situations within my body, digestive problems, sensitivities to foods. I mean, the list goes on and on. Chronic kidney stones. The list is really long. I mean, because every organ in my body had been devastated from not just the drugs, but from the harsh foods in our world and what we consume every day, this processed foods and the junk foods. And it really had changed my life because I was so sick. And sometimes it's not until you actually hit rock bottom that the only way to go is up. And so for me, my journey began 5 years ago. And possibly you've read my books, and my memoir shares the beginning of the journey, which is The Harvest of Hope, Living Victoriously Through Adversity, the memoir that shares my fibromyalgia journey and the near-death situation. And then I have a devotional, and which is a lot more encouraging and uplifting for many people of faith who are interested in taking back control over their health and their lives. And then my recent book is Reinventing You, Simple Steps to Transform Your Body, Mind, and Spirit. And so all along, I've been in a process of transformation. And so there I was writing my own book on being transformed and sharing so much about my own story and holistic healing and how our nutrition can either make or break us, the foods we eat and the chemicals we consume, and how we live our lives every day has a significant impact on us for better or for worse. And so while I never sought out to stop eating meat or consuming dairy and eggs and so forth, what happened was last summer, I had seen online that there was a documentary being offered in Squirrel Hill. And so it was by Plant Pure Nation. And based on the fact that my son is a vegan and he has a girlfriend and she has a vegan lifestyle as well, I was open to learning. I was open to joining them in the documentary just to gain knowledge because I do believe in clean nutrition. And I felt that this Plant Pure Nation would have something to offer me that I could learn so much more, and maybe it would be something that could help me along my healing path. And so we went to this documentary in which I did learn a lot, but I'll be honest, I walked away thinking, no, I will not stop eating my meat. And back then I called it my meat, quote unquote. And I was not willing. I was resistant. I couldn't imagine, giving up my favorite foods. And so I was not ready at that time, and I never really thought I would go forth. So it wasn't an automatic change. It wasn't something I decided and one day switched what I was eating. Instead, it was a very gradual process in which through time I was able to watch my son and his girlfriend and their vegan lifestyle and how they were eating. And then he came to my home and they made me dinner and our whole family enjoyed this vegan dish and decided, wow, it actually tastes really great. And he opened the door to a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of living. And then I had my daughter who started investigating this lifestyle and what it was all about and what it meant. And it led her to videos, and it led her to documentaries, where she started watching various documentaries that are free that even you could watch if you choose to. So I'll give you a few. So the one that was life-changing for her is called Earthlings. I'll be honest, I haven't watched it. I watched the trailer. It was a shock and absolutely horrifying, just horrifying to watch the brutality and the torture in the meat industry and what they do to the pigs and the cows and the chickens and the whales. And it goes on because every living creature is being tortured for our pleasure. And maybe you never thought today that eating meat or eating eggs or drinking your milk or eating your cheese, you never thought of it as pleasure, but really, truly, you may have thought, hey, I love it and I can't stop eating it. I love my chicken wings and I love my milk. And I get it because I used to be that. I used to be you. I used to think like that I would never in a million years give up my meat. And that's how I used to think of it. But sometimes knowledge is power. And until you discover something new, until you learn something, until you educate yourself, until you open your eyes, step out of the box and see things differently, maybe in a new perspective, then it could suddenly put you in a position where you could decide, what? Where do I go from here? How can I change my life, just even my health, to have better health? What if changing your diet could significantly improve your own body, mind, and spirit? What if it could? And so I have been on a quest to make these changes. And I wasn't really even thinking during this journey that it involved, losing a portion of my diet and totally cutting myself off from the dairy and the eggs and the seafood and the meat and so forth. I never imagined that I would ever do this. But what happened for me is, after learning more through my son, through his girlfriend, through my daughter, going online, doing some research, and then sitting down and saying, I'm going to view documentaries, more documentaries, some that are a lot more open and explicit, and some might be graphic. However, how many of us go to those horror films and watch those bloody, gory, grisly movies, the cops and the robbers and so forth, or those scary, Halloween movies, and you don't flinch. So, it's really no different, because those movies are really actually pretty fake, unless it's a true story, which there are some very true, brutal stories out there. But these stories and documentaries about what really goes on in the farming industry and the meat industry in our world, everywhere, it's so eye-opening, and it's teaching me something new. And so the one documentary that I really feel gave me a glimpse into the vegan lifestyle is one called Vegucated. So Vegucated is a documentary with these 3 individuals in New York City. And someone placed a Craigslist ad saying, hey, who's willing for 6 weeks to go 100% vegan? And of course, you have to, on your own, freely, cover the expense and commit yourself, but be involved in this little study, this little research, and then see after 6 weeks, how has it impacted your life, for better, for worse? And if these people then chose to clean up their diet, to go vegan, to determine, no, they don't want to go that way, they still want to consume their normal, traditional eating habits of meat, eggs, and dairy. And so it was interesting to get a glimpse into these people's lives, regular people like you and me, and how they were then educated. They started watching documentaries, and they started going to different professionals to learn more information about what is really going on behind closed doors. And they started shopping and learning what is healthy, what is whole, whole foods, plant-based foods, and gluten-free foods, and non-GMOs, and, staying away from the processed junk. And so it was interesting after the 6 weeks that 2 of them were most definitely leaning towards vegan lifestyle. And the one who was a huge fan of cheese decided to become a vegetarian. And so it's interesting to see how after 6 weeks that this is what they chose. And you could, respect that, whether someone chooses it, they don't choose it. it's really a personal choice, and everyone has to choose for themselves what they think is best for them. And as for myself, I was forever changed after watching these documentaries, because it really opened up my eyes to see that when I look back on my childhood and I look back on like family traditions on how I, started eating certain foods, and it's really basically learned behavior that my parents raised me a certain way, and they cooked a certain way, and their parents cooked a certain way, and they had a culture and they had traditions and they had certain recipes, and it all involved meat and eggs and dairy and seafood. And they thought, hey, this is where we get our protein and this is what we do. And you need your calcium from milk, right? Like that's the only place you could get it, right? And so this is what they did. And so there I was then raising my kids for all these years. And now, of course, my children are much older, 24, 20, and 17. And it just so happens now that I have one daughter who is a vegetarian and two children who are vegan. And so there's no doubt that it does help me take a closer look at my diet and help me look at my life and why I eat what I eat. And so it helped me see, do I really need meat? Can a meat lover go vegan? And so I decided, what is meat really doing for me? And so when I started researching meat, I determined and discovered through the research that actually meat causes inflammation. That it's not like my opinion. This is known fact. It's medical, scientific facts that the meat causes inflammation in our bodies. And so here I am, 8 years into the fibromyalgia. And what's the number one problem? Well, it's inflammation. And so when you start looking at your health, do you have too much inflammation going on? Do you have different situations within your own health where there's aches and there's pains and there's inflammation, or maybe there's diseases and disorders? And so it led me then to research more so, why is there so much cancer? Like, I have so many friends who have cancer right now. I have family members who died of cancer. I have friends who passed away from cancer, and they didn't smoke. So why did they die of cancer? How did they get lung cancer? Okay, they weren't smoking. So I try to make sense of this. And in the research, I discovered, and once again, it's not my opinion, it is a scientific and medical fact, that the dairy and meat industry are linked directly to cancer. And we're talking all forms of cancer. So regardless of whether someone smokes or not, regardless of whether a person has genetics in their family, that technically when they looked at the statistics, genetics were not a top, ruling factor, that it was lifestyle choices and nutrition. And it always linked back directly to meat eaters, dairy, seafood, eggs, butter, and so forth. And so it's basically that our foods are killing us. That when we look at our nation and all the diseases and all the disorders, and I am passionate about helping others to increase their quality of life. I am passionate about improving my own quality of life. And I've been on this journey now, and I've seen how my life has been positively turned around because I had to give up the gluten and give up the processed foods. And that was a choice, but that was also a medical situation where if I didn't give up the processed foods and the dairy because I'm lactose intolerant, and if I didn't give up the gluten, I would have been disabled and still in bed today and bedridden and not able to be an independent, productive person in society. And so the only way to get my life back, and I share this through my books, is I had to make changes. And they're not always simple changes. And I always say, don't do everything all at once. And so for me, it's been 5 weeks. And I didn't do everything all at once. I didn't just boom one day, that's it, no more meat. Instead, it was just this gradual process, slowly. And it's 5 weeks. So I haven't had actual, like, quote unquote, meat, like steak, chicken, eggs, dairy. I haven't had it for 5 weeks. And hey, I'm still alive. And actually, the truth is there's less inflammation. The truth is I feel better. The truth is that if this can enhance my health, then it's worth it. If this means that I have less risk of dying of cancer or heart disease or any other disease or disorder, then it's worth it. And so I just wanted to kind of give a shout out that, you know what? Think about your health. Think about what small change. And it doesn't mean going vegan. It means, do you need to take a look at the label of what you're eating and drinking and what you're consuming? Do you need to take a look? Is there red dye? Are there a lot of fake ingredients, hydrogenated oils, and just things that we don't need? And there's so much garbage and chemicals and trash in our foods today. All you have to do is read the news. And I mean, it's over and over and over. I mean, I just read today on Facebook about how there's Parmesan cheese that is not exactly what we thought we were eating. And so for those who eat Parmesan cheese, you might want to check out that Facebook post. You might want to do a little research. It appears that there are some harsh chemicals and additives in Parmesan cheese that are unhealthy. And then, I just read yesterday too, how the different antacids like Prilosec are causing dementia. So I could go on and share how all these chemicals and all these foods, these fake foods in our world, are really hindering our health. They're not helping our health. They're hindering our health and our progress. And so don't we want to live a longer life? Don't we want to live a more productive, joyful, vibrant life? I know I do. So if you'd like to check out my books or you'd like to check out my encouraging website, go to danaarcuri.com. And in the coming days, I will be sharing more about this vegan lifestyle. And really, that's what it is. It's a gradual change. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of how I'm learning, how I'm feeling better, and what it's doing for me. So have a great day. Bye-bye.